everyone to enter and being connected, and we will start very shortly. Okay, I think we are all connected, and we'll have for sure more people entering in the meanwhile, as we know that the opening part is never very full of people. So again, thank you everyone for being here with us. Thank you to the speakers and also to everyone attending here and also on the streaming we have on YouTube and on the summit website. I'm Flavia Duarte. I'm Chief Operational Officer at Irradiar, and I'll be moderating this session today with Daniel Janeiro from the Regional Development Agency of Alentejo, to who I asked to make the opening of this session. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Flavia. Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Janeiro. I am the coordinator of the External Promotion Department in ADRAL, the Alentejo Regional Development Agency, and the Portuguese representative of EURADA, the European Association of Development Agencies. So it is on behalf of ADRAL that I would like to thank the invitation that was addressed to us to co-organize an event of this relevance, as this summit is, where it has been possible to review some old partners and friends. At a personal level, it is also for me an honor to welcome you to this Future Lab session under the name Food, Bioeconomy and the Natural Resources. So ADRAL, as its name says, it's a regional development agency. It exists since 1998, so for almost 23 years, at a time when several regional development agencies were created in Portugal in 1998. Unfortunately, at this time, ADRAL is the only regional development agency in Portugal, and it is a survivor because over the years we have been able to adapt to the constant changes in social and business paradigms. Above all, we are able to know how to modernize and to be at the forefront. And just for that reason, the pandemic, which forces us to talk to each other at this distance, did not catch us off guard. So ADRAL's activity has always been based on territorial development and business support in a symbiotic relationship with several regional partners, from which I led the host of this summit, the Commission of Coordination and Development of the Alentejo region, or ADIA, which manages the largest artificial lake in Europe. So being the Alentejo region, a region traditionally agricultural and with a natural wealth of the largest in Europe, the themes that we'll be addressing in this session say a lot to our region, as the impact of climate changes says, and that forces us to be resilient. In this sense, as it could not be otherwise, ADRAL has always developed activities within the sectors of agro-industry and natural resources, making its contribution to the technological advances of agricultural explorations. These activities include support for entrepreneurs and companies in these sectors, also the management and participation in working groups such as the Ornamental Rocks Cluster or the Alentejo Circular Economy Forum, among others. We cannot also fail to mention participation in projects, which has always happened in strict cooperation with entities and companies in the region. Examples of these is the Eco Combine project. It is an Horizon 2020 project that ADRAL is a partner, and that aims to demonstrate combined aquaculture and allophate farming, which is the farming of saline-tolerant plants, using the principles of circular economy. Or we can talk about another Horizon 2020 project that ADRAL applied for, and if it is approved, it will happen in a partnership with several entities in Alentejo. It's called the 2S Circular, also focused in circular economy, but in this case in the Alentejo region. So this being said, On behalf of ADRAL, it will be a privilege to be able to attend this session and listen to your precious testimonies, for which I welcome you. Thank you very much. And I give back the floor now to Mrs. Flavia Duarte. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much for showcasing a bit what ADRAL, our co-organizers also on this event, have been developing on this topic. And I would like to just share a brief presentation on cluster 6, as we had some intervention that unfortunately was not able to, some speaker that was not able to attend. So I will be just showcasing this presentation, and if there are any specific questions related to cluster 6, I will gladly receive them and direct them if that's the case. So in order to start, I will just share my screen. Just let me know if you are all seeing the screen I'm sharing.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this session is focused on cluster 6, which is on food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. In the Horizon Europe structure, it fits the Pillar 2, which is here on Horizon Europe structure. We have Pillar 1, which is excellent science. We have Pillar 2, which is about global challenges and European industrial competitiveness, and Pillar 3, innovative Europe. So we have here on Pillar 2, we have 9 billion euros that are for these clusters. Among them, the cluster 6, we will be mostly talking today and creating here some synergies among already ongoing projects related to this topic, which I'm very eager to listen about. Of course, even though 2 of them I already know a bit, and I will gladly hear on the progress and what we have been doing until now. On the work program, as you know, it is being built. It's in process. It will be the first calls. We have the information that will be opening from 18th of May. Of course, we don't know exactly because everything is still ongoing, but we hope that this is the calendar that we will have. So we will have a submission deadline in 2021 for the 1st of September, and then we'll have for 2022 on one stage 15th of February 2022, or on 2 stages proposals. On cluster 6, what does it focus? It focuses on food, bioeconomy, natural resources, and agriculture and environment, as we discussed. It aims at protecting, restoring, sustainably managing, and using natural and biological resources. So a little bit what Danielle was saying about the circular economy and all these projects that allow us to reach a low carbon and resource efficient economy. This is what we want to achieve. And of course, the projects that we'll be listening about also contribute, and this is why we think on this session we'll find for sure interesting partners that we can build something great together. And this is the purpose of the Future Lab session, to really allow us to co-create and to bring some innovative things to the table and focus on what's coming now with the Horizon Europe opportunities. So the priorities will be defined in the strategic plan. The cluster 6 is designed around 7 coherent packages of calls and topics that will contribute to these expected impacts that are set out in the strategic plan, which they call the destinations. The applicants, as usual, will be required to set out in their proposals a credible pathway for how the project, if successful, would contribute to these impacts of the destination. So in this sense, we have 1 cluster and 7 destinations. We'll have the D1, which is biodiversity and ecosystem services, D2 for fair, healthy, and environment-friendly food systems from primary production to consumption. On 3, we have the circular economy that we were already talking about, and the bioeconomy sectors. D4 on clean environment, zero pollution. D5 more focused on land, ocean, and water for climate action. D6 on resilient, inclusive, healthy, and green rural, coastal, and urban communities. And on D7, we have innovative governance, environmental observations, and digital solutions in support of the Green Deal. So we have a lot of things that we can do and a lot of opportunities that we can take advantage of. So for cluster 6. And how will cluster 6 make a difference? We have set out here the impacts that it wants to help achieve. Which is on climate neutrality, on biodiversity, on sustainable and circular management, food and nutrition security for all, from farm to fork, dynamics on rural, coastal, and urban areas. So it is very much related to the destinations. Of course, we have the destinations and we have the impacts that result from these destinations. And in the end, which is very important, and it's also focused in some projects that we will listen later on the innovative governance models that enable sustainable and resilience. Of course, we cannot do much if we don't have good governance and the policy supporting all these changes. Who can participate? EU member states and countries associated to Horizon 2020, as we can see here on the map. So this was just a short introduction to the cluster, as we wish that in order to launch this discussion that we will be doing now, and for all of us to be aware of what this cluster 6 aims at achieving. Since this is all, of course, a new program, we are all learning again. So we were learning for the past years, now we'll be learning again, which is good because we are always evolving and improving. So this was just a short introduction to the topic. I would like now to give the floor to Professor Stefano Caselli from Positive Project. Thank you, Professor, for being here with us. Professor Stefano is Professor of Computer Engineering of the University of Parma, where he teaches courses in operating and real-time systems, digital design, and robotics. So seems quite interesting. Thank you, Stefani, if you would like to take the floor. We are seeing your presentation, but we cannot hear you for now.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Here again. Okay. Thank you for your kind presentation. Yes, I've been involved into these issues of fundamental issues of precision agriculture in the last about 10 years in an effort to integrate more technology into what is fundamental for our local development. So really, I've been asked by the agri-food cluster that I am part of to provide a view of what is currently the sustainability policy for agriculture of the region Emilia-Romagna. So I will be more focused on a global regional view rather than on the specific project that I am coordinating, which is actually the Positive Project that you see the logo here in the bottom. And okay. Well, as you probably all know, Emilia-Romagna has a high concentration of quality food products, including many products with protected origin, which are typically associated to our region. But also, this is strictly related to the fundamental raw products which are being produced in this area, such as fruit in the Romagna, in the eastern part of the region. But for example, also tomatoes, which are covering a large part of the region for industrial use of tomato. And for example, we have these very specific local banks where they are hosting not ingots of gold or money, but they are actually hosting like Parmesan cheese and hams, as you can see. So this is really important for Region Emilia-Romagna. However, there are also challenges to the agricultural system of our area, because the biggest challenge is probably climate change. There used to be a time where it was possible to grow a very special type of peach, which was called pesca secana. It was like a dry peach tree, and it was possible to grow this peach without irrigation. Now this is no longer possible. And so really there are some very pressing water needs for agriculture. which has been managed, as we'll tell you later, with irrigation and irrigation infrastructure, irrigation equipment, and it is very important into the economy of irrigation, the amount of money that we get into our Apennines, actually. So the snow in the Apennine is one of also of our assets which are driving irrigation for the whole year. And other challenges are also the digital transformation of our agriculture, which must move from a labor-intensive activity to rather a data-driven and more automated activity. And that's the reason why, as an engineer, I'm involved into this project as well. And we need to have a new generation of farmers which are open to innovation. So actually, we must have a transition from tradition to open innovation, because there is also a strong emphasis on the fact that innovation should not be something for excellent, for some few excellent farmers, but rather should be widespread across the whole area. So how can we cope as a region with the challenges? What is the approach of Regione Emilia-Romagna? A little bit of more focus on tomatoes, for example. What is the impact of climatic change? We are meeting extended periods without rains, with several winters with little or no snow in the Apennines, and possibly also in the Alps, which is feeding the lakes in northern Italy and eventually the Po River, and especially above average night temperature. In the last summer, about 1/3 of the tomatoes for industrial production, which in Emilia-Romagna cover more than 37,000 of hectares, have been lost due to early ripening, because basically all the tomato became ripe in the same week, and the transformation industry was not ready to accept all this tomato in a single week, as it was planned to ripen across several weeks. So the Emilia-Romagna approach to cope with challenges is, roll up your sleeves, work together as a team, and get the job done. Emilia-Romagna is basically an area of our people working hard and trying to work together. There is a long tradition on this approach, and we can see that sustainability in agriculture can be traced in several action of the Emilia-Romagna administration. So I can say that it is actually policy. Even though I'm not an administrator, I'm only a researcher, but I can see many different actions along this line. For example, Emilia-Romagna has developed a set of clusters which are putting together companies and also research centers. And one of the major thematic clusters is devoted to agri-food. So, and I'm speaking on behalf of the agri-food cluster of the Regione Emilia-Romagna. And one of the most important value chains of the cluster agri-food is actually dedicated to sustainable and precision agriculture. In the last call, which of ERDF project, which has been funded by Regione Emilia-Romagna, two major projects have been supported. One is called Smart Sustainable Specialized Orchard, S3O, and is led by my colleague Corelli Grappadelli of the University of Bologna, where he, with his collaborator, is developing an innovative orchard which is exploiting new technology to gain minimal resource usage in terms of water, nutrients, efforts, and so on. For example, by shielding fruit production when there is excessive sun, or for example, by delivering water and measuring when water can be assimilated by fruit trees and leading to the minimal consumption of water at different time of the day, for example. So it is actually focusing on innovation. The positive project that I am coordinating deals with scalable operational protocols for precision agriculture. And here the purpose is rather to enable precision irrigation across the whole region. So the emphasis is on impact. Let's put to ground what is existing, and let's assist all farmers to implement precision irrigation by removing obstacles hindering its adoption. And there are some shared keywords. These are joint research and industry effort. We are consulting and interfacing with companies daily in our research activity. It's a multidisciplinary approach, and that's why I'm here actually. And there is also a strong stakeholder engagement. So, for example, for positive, the purpose is to use to the maximum extent possible the data which are made available by Sentinel satellites, so that we have high resolution satellite maps or vegetation indices, which are being published and made available to all, to all farmers which want to register to this service freely. Also, there is also a center which is also part of the project, which is providing variable rate irrigation and fertigation recipes, which are taking into account not only the phenological development of the crops, but also, of course, metadata, vegetation indices, sensor data from fields where they are available, and so on. And we are developing some standard protocols which are freely available to interface different sensor networks, possibly different irrigation advisory services, and also including also precision irrigation equipment. And at the end, we are involving actual farms which are applying these protocols so as to showcase precision irrigation to possibly to all the farmers of the region. All components are open and are interoperable to gain maximum impact on the whole region. Emilia-Romagna has also developed over the year an important amount of irrigation infrastructures, which include a network of over 20,000 kilometers of canals, reservoirs, dams, pumps, and so on, that cover the whole region. And these networks are divided in segments which are managed by local consortia where farmers play a prominent role. An important infrastructure that I want to mention is Canal Emiliano-Romagnolo. You can see here in the bottom, it gets water from the Po River and during the winter and accumulates water into the canal and brings water to the driest part of the region, which now has become really a garden of fruit cultivation. In 2020, more than 300 million cubic meters being delivered at different water management consortia. It's a huge infrastructure which has been operational since half of the last century and is continuously improved and expanded. It's very important. It's fundamental in the current, with the current climate change challenge. Also, an important component of this policy for irrigation and water saving is IRRINET Public Irrigation Advisory Service. There are private irrigation advisory services, but this is free. You can register for that. It's available to any farmer in the region and is being expanded to export it also to other regions. And is currently available to more than 16,000 farmers in Regione Emilia-Romagna. We are essentially interested to the plain, which is the irrigated part of the region, because you know that half of Regione Emilia-Romagna is mountain, so you cannot actually irrigate that much. And also there are fiscal incentives for purchasing metered and digitized irrigation equipment, because we all know that farming equipment has a long life and farmers are very resistant to improving or changing their equipment. So there are also some fiscal incentives for this purpose. Also, there is a synergy with other, with other domains where there is strong specialization in Regione Emilia-Romagna. Because Emilia-Romagna hosts a district of irrigation equipment manufacturers. I was perusing a catalog of the Agritechnica Fair in 2019, which dubs itself as the world leading trade fair for agricultural machinery. And in about 128 exhibitors dealing with irrigation, between 20 and 30 exhibitors were from Emilia-Romagna, and all positive industrial partners related to irrigation equipment were also exhibiting at Agritechnica. In positive, what we do, we develop plans which are improved using variable rate recipes, which are developed using satellite imagery, so vegetation maps, and also IoT sensor data gathered from the field, and also from we are also experimenting with some new sensors which are directly inserted into the stems of plants, actually. And we provide these improved and variable rate maps directly interfaced to irrigation equipment. So we are experimenting about this direct interfacing with several companies, including, you can see in the bottom corner here, the interface with one of these irrigation machine we are playing with, is called Ocmis. Also, Emilia-Romagna has a policy for open and public data and ICT services. So the Regional Agency for Environment, ARPAE, is a partner of Positive, and they started publishing open NDVI and EVI maps, which are updated at each Sentinel-2 transit and these data are available for the whole irrigated part of the region. Another subsidiary of the region, which is an in-house company called Lepida, is deploying a public IoT network based on the LoRaWAN IoT standard for long distance communication. The image here is not updated, it refers to about 1 or maybe 2 years ago. It is constantly expanding. It is providing public gateways so that private or public administrations can put their own sensor and directly interface and broadcast their data to the network. And this is not only for irrigation, this is also for landslides monitoring, it's also for pollution monitoring, it's also for monitoring the level of in rivers, for example, for preventing flooding and so on. It's many different uses, and we are also interfacing our soil humidity sensor and plant development sensor into this network. This is an enabling platform, and we plan to use it. We are trying to use it as a way to connect systems and people for precision irrigation across the whole region. This is the impact issue that I was mentioning before. And finally, there is a very strong political statement which has been signed in last December in the very middle of the pandemic, and it's a pact for work and climate in our region, and the goal is to promote regional development based and taking into account primarily environmental, economic, and social sustainability. To face the challenges, political challenges, in Italy we have a demographic crisis side by side with the climatic emergency. We need to face digital transformation. There are still many inequalities to cope with. And as I was mentioning, there is a very broad stakeholder involvement. Maybe you have heard about this triple helix or quadruple helix model. Indeed, the administration is confronted with 55 partners like company associations, labor unions, NGOs, universities, and environmental association, and with an engagement to develop together strategic decision until the end of this decade. And one of the pillars of this regional approach is indeed sustainable agriculture. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Stefan. It was very interesting to listen about everything that you have been working on and developing together, in particular in what regards precision agriculture and the digital transformation of agriculture. It is really connected to also something we are exploring on the next presentation we will have, and that we are looking into it. So I think it's very interesting what you showed, and also related to LoRa, to how to connect and to use this this technology also to support us on this. So thank you very much. We'll be collecting questions for our debate in the end, so please feel free to leave them on the chat, and we will address them later on. So now we will have the presentation of Daniela Chonkova, which I know from Citizen Project. Thank you, Daniela, for accepting our invitation. It's good to see you. And Daniela has over 20 years of experience with SMEs on the field of R&D and innovation. Is coordinator of Citizen Project, which I'm also following up in the Alentejo region. So this is how we know each other. And as a coordinator of the Enterprise Europe Network for Bulgaria, she has gained also deep insight to the SME needs and performance in the context of smart growth, competitiveness, and international partnerships. And also she has been involved in policy research actions related to new business models. So thank you, Daniela. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Flavia, for this introduction, and thank you very much for the invitation to share our project with the participants here.
I will share the presentation for you. Yes.
Sorry, the screen with the presentation. What I will be sharing with you is this Citizen Project, which is a project supported by the Interreg Europe program. It was initiated, it was inspired actually by the upcoming and very fast developing trend of urban farming as innovative action in the urban context. And the title of the project was on the one hand to imply for citizens for the community involvement in such actions. On the other hand, it was inspired by the city Zen, the Zen gardens, and then to make our communities nicer and greener and more beautiful. So next slide, please. The goal of the project is to foster urban farming policies, because the Interreg Europe project, they basically address improvement of policies. In our case, we have gathered together 5 regions with their policy instruments, their strategies and financial instruments to foster urban farming in the regions, to create social and economic impact in the regions. The project would like to support new business models for urban agriculture, as well as
Daniela, I'm hearing some noise. I don't know if it's from you or no. Okay, now you can proceed. It was just some noise that we couldn't hear fully your voice, but now it's clear. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so these policy instruments, these strategies and financial instruments that we have gathered together, they address urban agriculture, new business models, and resource efficiency. We would like to rebuild also urban sites, and not only have the cities and the regions focus on greening their cities, but also introducing urban farming as a business and social activity. Of course, the overall impact that we are trying to achieve in the end is more resilient food systems and better use of city resources at large. Next slide, please. We are a relatively small partnership of 7 partners from 5 regions. Our organization, Applied Research and Communications Fund, ARC Fund, is the coordinator. In Bulgaria, we are the leading NGO in the field of innovation in various aspects of innovation, soft innovation, innovation at policy level, technologies, and so on. We have also the Regional Development Fund of Central Macedonia as member of our partnership. We also have from Germany the Institute of Rural Development, the Institute for Rural Development Research at the Goethe University. From Portugal, happy to have the municipality of Beja together with Simbal and the Alentejo intermunicipal community in Portugal. This partnership happened thanks to Daniel and who helped to have the region and Flavia in the project. And also we have Spain in our partnership, the Higher Technical School of Agrarian Engineering at the University of Valladolid, together with the National Heritage Foundation of Castilla y León. Next slide, please. Now, urban farming has a lot of aspects, and we're trying to target all of them in the various contexts in the regions, in the participant regions. First and foremost, we think that urban farming activates the citizens. It is not only because of the healthy food or healthy diet that it creates, but also it gives more energetic power to the individuals that are involved in such activities, be it business type of activities, business models, be it social type of undertakings. And they create much stronger bonds among all the stakeholders involved in an urban farming initiative. Also, another role that we're trying to address, this is the city greening and better use of local resources. For example, the rooftop gardening that becomes part of the city skyline. Of course, to have it with all its beautiful impact, it needs much higher scaling. But for the time being, we're trying to introduce even small but successful models in the participant regions. Also, this indoor farming becomes more and more fashionable because of the very scarce land that we have in the cities. The land that is available is much oftener used for construction rather than for gardening. Also, urban farming can make the food accessible to the people in a given community, in a given roundabout, especially people with lower income that would like to get involved in such actions. It is also a way to educate young people and create new skills, but also create this sense of achievement and satisfaction from something that they have grown on their own. Another key aspect that we are trying to tackle in the Citizen Project, this is that urban farming is an arena where public policies can meet, can make the bottom up and the top down actions meet. In Bulgaria, for instance, the region, in our region, it is very, very difficult to find urban farming undertakings. The majority of them are social ones, especially, voluntary type of activities, but we're trying also to foster some business models in the region. Next slide, please. For the policy instruments, the strategies and the financial mechanisms that we are trying to analyze and to improve and to suggest some improvement measures and further how to optimize their impact. These are the policy instruments from the 5 participant regions. The region, we have two policy instruments from the structural funds. These are the regional operational programs of the region of Central Macedonia, where urban environment is set as a priority to be improved and to revitalize the city size, the city areas in this way. We also have a structural fund scheme from Castilla y León, from the Castilla y León region, that focuses on protecting biodiversity and soil and promoting ecosystem services. From Sofia, we started our participation with the structural funds scheme. It was the operational program for innovation and competitiveness. and the regional innovation centers scheme. Regretfully, with the pandemics, the whole budget for these regional innovation centers was cancelled and was reallocated to the COVID support measures for the enterprises. So we are now happy to have quite intensive interaction and collaboration with Sofia municipality and the so-called Green Sofia program, where besides the greenery actions, we are trying to integrate some urban farming support. From the Alentejo region, we have the strategic development plan managed by Simbal that intends to strengthen infrastructure and environmental services in the region, covering around 12, 13 municipalities, including Beja. From Germany, we have the framework concept and action plan of the Rhine-Main Regional Park of Frankfurt, which is trying to preserve the green and cultural landscapes in Frankfurt, but also in a green kind of a belt around the city. With the future policy actions, we would be happy if in the end we manage to empower citizens and farmers and social groups on the one hand to get more familiar with the prospects of these activities, on the other hand to get inspired and either initiate or support some existing actions in the urban farming. Next slide, please. Within the citizen, we have a lot of exchange of experience, very good, very intensive interaction among all the participant regions, with plenty of events, with plenty of good practices to share. And of course, we intend to end up with 5 improvement action plans for the 5 target policy instruments. Next slide, please. Very recently, just a couple of weeks ago, we held one of our workshops where we invited speakers from outside the partnership to share their good practices, their successful undertakings, and to enrich our learning process. Some of the most important messages that we got from this workshop was that on the one hand, we need to make very clear to all the stakeholders that we're trying to build trust between the farmers and the city, that urban farming is not something to replace the large-scale rural farming activities, but it is rather to bring urban farming closer to the people, closer to the cities. And we're trying to bridge this kind of conventional farming, the rural conventional farming from the rural areas with the cities and the citizens, and enhance this process of mutual learning, of learning how to work together and how to improve our community that we live in. It is also a way to enhance the community involvement and kind of relay the message that we are in farmers in your neighborhood, and your neighborhood is our farm. So it's not only about the farming process, it's not only about the produce, but it's about a whole building a whole community and with a lot of side effects and impacts on the citizens, on the young people, on the business, on the outlook of the roundabout of the region. So this is basically all that I wanted to share with you. And whoever is interested in more information, you can find us on the Interreg Europe portal, the Citizen Project. And we would be glad to respond to any questions or ask, share any further information. Thank you, Flavia.
Thank you so much, Daniela. It's always good to hear about the Citizen Project and what amazing things we plan and we are achieving already. So thank you for your intervention.
These were very ambitious. Let's hope that we would achieve what we have.
Yes, we were a bit taken, as everyone, of course, with the pandemic, as we only had the chance to meet in person once, and then the pandemic arrived. So, but we managed to quickly, as resilient as we are, we quickly adapt. So, we for sure will achieve it and get back together as soon as it is possible, for sure. Thank you so much, Daniela. Again, if there are any questions, please drop a message on the chat. We will get that back to them on the debate. And I will introduce right away also our next speaker, which is the coordinator of Blue Phasma, Professor Yorgos Stefanidis. Thank you so much for being here with us. In my case, also following up the Blue Growth Community Project. Of course, we also know about Blue Phasma and are very keen on the results that Blue Phasma is wanting to achieve. So thank you so much for being with us. Professor Stefanidis has a PhD and is a specialist in transportation and traffic theory and transport telematics. He was for 20 years with the faculty at the Department of Civil Engineering of the University of Minnesota, where he became full professor and director of graduate studies. At the moment, he's coordinator of Blue Phasma, and he's from the University of Patras. Thank you, Professor, for being with us. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Can we share my presentation? I have it.
Okay. Yes, I think you are able to do it. If not, let me know.
Okay, share screen. I should. So please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. Okay, so we can start. Thank you so much for your kind introduction. Yes, so we will discuss a little bit our project, and just to set the stage, I should say that this work is an application of a more general type of work that we are conducting for smart cities and smart communities in several countries around the world. So now let's look at the title of our project, which seeks to empower the innovation capacities, primarily of SMEs, because they are key components, key actors in this sector, but also maritime clusters and networks in the Med area, with emphasis on the islands and coastal areas, in order to support the blue circular economy growth in fishing and aquaculture. So it's important to keep in mind that this is within smart cities, emphasis on circular economy, and then application in islands and coastal areas. Here we give an overview of where the countries are and the territories that participate in the project. So we go to what are our three main goals in this project. So first of all, the goal is to enhance the innovation capacity, as we already mentioned, of SMEs and the clusters and networks. And this is within the smart cities and communities. Now, okay, so if we look at how we can do that, we can do it by transferring knowledge, by recording their level of circularity, how much advanced they are in this track to achieving circularity, and supporting them in getting financing and transferring their results. The second goal is the need to improve the cooperation transnationally by succeeding in deep networking amongst the partners. So that includes also the SMEs and clusters and networks within the framework, as we said in the beginning, of smart cities and communities, in order to facilitate the transfer of the results that are applicable. And the third goal is to capitalize on these results in order to shift the existing policies in this fishing and aquaculture sector towards the circular economy innovation. Okay, so just very, very briefly, our work is based on the development of interoperable readiness and willingness protocols and key performance indicators, with emphasis on reliability, resilience, and circularity, which was first introduced by Cohen in 2012. And initially, the 6 smart categories that have been by the principal authors had been introduced are environment, mobility, government, economy, people, and living. So within this we operate. And now let's look at the results, concrete results from a project. One is to develop a consolidated knowledge base of Blue Phasma circular economy, where we can find systematized all the best practices, tools, and solutions in this sector. Second, already we talked about the previous work that has been done. And based on that work, we develop a self-assessment tool that is based on appropriate KPIs, which we can use as a unified measure for evaluating, determining the readiness and the willingness to invest in circular economy by the SMEs. So this can also be used by as a decision support tool. It is highly transferable and it can be used across the coastal and insular areas in this domain. Already 114 SMEs in this sector, in this value chain, have tested the tool. Okay. So if we move to the fourth result, it is that we have developed a network that facilitates the experience exchange and networking amongst actors that's in different countries around the world. And we already have 180 registered users around the world so far. Okay, if we move to deep involvement of partners and others. We achieve this by the Blue Living Labs. All of the partners in this project are actively participating. This is a way to create an open innovation ecosystem, or several ecosystems if we look at them locally, that place the user in the center. So they are focused in increasing the circularity in this domain, but always with the user at the center. Number 6, we enhance the synergies between businesses and all the different bodies participating. 7, we have a capacity building instrument that can be used that, as we introduced in the beginning, this is one of our goals in order to support those that are participating in the sector, support them, get the appropriate financing, and provide mentoring and coaching opportunities for research and innovation. Okay, and the 8th is the Memorandum of Understanding. It is a memorandum that is signed by the partnership and as well by other public and private key actors in this sector. Okay, this memorandum has already been signed by 47 entities, and we're still in the middle of the project. So we expect that more will be signing, so that in the end we will have the opportunity to have a larger community working together in this sector. So thank you so much. This is my presentation, and of course, as you are collecting questions and comments, we'll be very glad to discuss them with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you for your presentation and also for your availability on this and for being here with us today. I will now introduce the next speaker, which is Maria. I'm sorry if I misspell your name, Sitsoglu, is a coordinator from Urban Innovative Action Oasis. And Maria is the co-founder of Design Clips, architect and urban designer with expertise in resilient urban planning, stakeholder engagement, participatory and outreach strategies. She holds a master in urban design from UC Berkeley, USA, and a master in architecture from Demokritos University in Greece. And throughout her career, she has been part of international urban design projects in Morocco, Spain, USA, Vietnam, and France. Hello, Maria. I can see you now. Thank you for being here today with us. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Flavia, for the invitation and for the introduction. I hope that you can see my screen.
Yes, all is good. Thank you.
Great. So hello, everyone. I would like just to mention that I'm not the coordinator, but the project advisor on behalf of the Urban Innovative Actions Initiative. So I will present a slightly different project than the ones that we heard previously. In this project, with the City of Paris, we're focusing more on climate adaptation and social cohesion through environmental action plans. So the concept of the Oasis schoolyards is to co-design and transform the schoolyards into climate adaptive and joyful green areas for the neighborhood with the active participation of both the pupils and the local community. And actually, Oasis is not just the word that we use, but it's an acronym that stands for openness, adaptation, sensitization, innovation, and social ties. So this is a project that we're trying, on the one hand, to tackle climate crisis, and on the other hand, also to strengthen the social cohesion in the local communities. So the Oasis idea emerged from the Paris Urban Resilience Strategy, which was published back in 2018 as an action plan for climate adaptation. And how did they come up with this idea is that, first of all, frequent and intense heat waves were major climate-related challenges in Paris. Specifically during the summer of 2017, schools were closed for 3 days due to the extreme heat. And also the fact that the schoolyards were asphalt covered, and this worsened the temperatures there because it increased the local temperature and made the microclimate even more uncomfortable. So if we want to just summarize the objectives of this cross-sectoral project, we would say that, first of all, the Oasis schoolyards aim to transform the schoolyards into climate adaptive spaces. Second, to ensure that those schoolyards are appropriate places for children of all abilities and that they promote their healthy development and well-being. Also, that the schoolyards integrate more nature for all. And this is a very interesting and key part of this project, that the schoolyards are not only dedicated to children, but we are adopting the idea that these schoolyards can actually be an open access green space for the entire neighborhood, for people not only to meet, but also to have a safe refuge in times of crisis during heat waves. Also, we are trying to encourage citizen engagement and active participation in both design phase, but also in the programming of the space. And finally, to educate and raise awareness about climate change impact and how we can all take action. So the idea of the Oasis project, as I said previously, began in 2018, and the City of Paris actually tried out a few solutions in different schools, But in 2019, they had the opportunity to receive funding from the Urban Innovative Actions Initiative. I'm not sure if you are all familiar with this initiative. It is a part of the European Regional Development Fund. So they received the funding for a 3-year program where 10 schoolyards were chosen to be transformed. But this time, the city had the opportunity to collaborate with 5 different local partners in order to develop a cross-disciplinary approach, not only to redesign, but also to reach the objectives they have set for both climate adaptation and at the same time, social and educational priorities. Now, the milestones, briefly, let's go through the milestones of the project. In 2019, we worked most on the development of pedagogical and co-design tools, again, for raising awareness and educating about climate adaptation, and at the same time, how we can all participate in both designing and implementing those solutions. This project actually has invested a lot of time and effort in co-design workshops with pupils, but also with the local community as well. For 2020, we had the preparation of all the innovative specifications, the solutions, the actual plans, construction plans, and the actual construction of the schoolyards. Currently, we have constructed 9 out of the 10 schoolyards that are within the project. And now for the 2021, the milestones will be the development of the new uses, this place-making program that we want to develop together with the local community. So each school can actually become the social hub during the afternoon hours, and also the formulation of results and tools for scalability and transferability. I would like to highlight here that unfortunately, due to COVID-19 safety measures, the part where all the gatherings with the local communities has been slightly postponed. We are seeking for alternative solutions at the moment, and we're working on redefining how we can actually engage the local community into action. Now, our journey till the moment can actually be structured in 6 steps. As mentioned, we began with focusing a lot on workshops with pupils and having the observations about the schoolyards, collecting ideas, and integrating their priorities and needs into the plans. We had school exhibitions where the whole local community could actually get familiarized with the idea of the Oasis schoolyards. And then we had, of course, reviews with experts and finalizing the construction plans, and finally proceeding with construction works and having now our schoolyards being ready and already in use. Here you can see a few photos from the co-design and participatory workshops. And I would like to mention that the schools that were chosen within the frame of this program were from kindergarten, elementary schools, and middle school, and all the activities and different tools that we used for engagement and participation were different regarding the school age. Now, as we're talking a little bit about natural resources, I'd like to focus how we see that the Oasis schoolyards actually are the natural resource for the neighborhoods. Is that one of the first priorities were that while redesigning and reconstructing the schoolyards, at least 20 to 30% of the total area will be dedicated to green spaces. Also, we used a lot of permeable paving materials, provisioned shaded areas, either with the use of addition of more vegetation or additional structures, and also by providing drinking water fountains and water features for stormwater management. And all these to the idea that we can actually improve the local microclimate in the times of crisis, for example, during a heat wave. Now, the Oasis vision is a little bit broader than just focusing on schoolyards. We envision that those schoolyards, as we know, that are usually in all cities located in the heart of the neighborhoods, we envision them to become the new green spaces within the neighborhoods. So by transforming them with more vegetation and becoming those cool islands, as we like to call them, we are creating a cool and shaded refuge for residents of all ages, because we want these schoolyards to have the capacity to open access during after school hours. And keeping in mind that every Parisian resides within a radius of 250 meters from a public school, then we strongly believe that till 2050, once the overall vision that we can transform all of the schoolyards into Oasis schoolyards, there we're going to have achieved that there's an important amenity within proximity of every Parisian. And I don't know if many of you are familiar with that concept, the new concept that Paris is actually promoting at the moment, the 15-minute plan, that we are recreating and strengthening the core of the little neighborhoods to actually provide all the amenities in close proximity to all residents. Then we strongly believe that our project actually contributes to the overall city's vision. I think I will leave it here. This is from me. Thank you for listening. And please follow us to stay tuned to our next steps.
Thank you, Maria. I'm amazed by the project. This is so nice. Such a great initiative. That really congratulations on the work you have been doing, and hopefully to see it happening everywhere else. Because of course these projects have this part of replication that could be I think that are also needed anywhere else, like here in Portugal as well, and for sure in some other countries. And it's important to take this into account for our children, and yeah, to really not be just a space where they spend a lot of time, but to a space where they spend a lot of time, a lot of quality time, and this is what this project is being able to do. So thank you very much for sharing with us today. Okay, again, as I've been mentioning, feel free to drop some questions on the chat. And in the meanwhile, I will introduce our next speaker, which is Gerald Schwarz, coordinator of Uniseco. And Gerald has a PhD in agricultural economics and works with the Thunen Institute of Farm Economics in Germany. His research focuses on the analysis of barriers and drivers of sustainable farming systems and on innovative governance approaches for public good provision from agriculture. He is currently coordinating the H2020 project Uniseco on agroecological transitions in European farming systems. So thank you, Gerald, from, yes, here you are. Welcome to the session. Already with your presentation all set. Go ahead, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for confirming that you can see the slides, and thanks a lot for the introduction and the invitation to give us the opportunity here to present the Uniseco project. We really welcome the opportunity, and it's really an interesting mix of different projects in that session and different presentations. That's really exciting. So with the Uniseco project, we basically go back to farming and to agroecological transitions in particular. And the emphasis of the project is about, well, understanding and strengthening sustainability of farming systems in Europe, with the particular emphasis on agroecological farming and agroecological transitions. So I thought I would just briefly introduce the project and just go through some kind of main outputs and lessons from the project. And if time is left, maybe make a few connections to the Horizon Europe cluster and program that you were also mentioning at the beginning. In Uniseco, we are a transdisciplinary consortium. We are 18 partners. Just to introduce us briefly, I'm not going through the list of all the partners, but we are consisting of different research institutions, different practice partners, and NGOs. And we are based in 16 countries across Europe. And the starting point of Uniseco, and of course also of quite a number of other European projects, is really the kind of dilemma in terms of the public goods and the private goods. So how to produce sufficient public goods from agriculture while still having a viable production. So how to produce environmentally sustainable, but also being profitable at the same time. And that was the kind of hook that the project tried to touch and to address in its course. So the overarching objective then of the project is to strengthen the sustainability of European farming systems and then again with an emphasis really on the multi-actor approach, on co-constructing with the different actors improved strategies and incentives for agroecological approaches, and bringing here together the different actors from farmers to the value chain, to local authorities, ministries, and so on. And through the project and through its results, then to improve the knowledge base of agroecological and farming in the EU, and forward looking into how to design policies at the different levels in the future. And before I go into more detail, one of the key aspects, and in a way also challenges at the beginning, was the importance really of covering the European diversity and also the specific local context of the farming systems at different places, and the local context particularly important for agroecological transitions. And just to give a few examples, so one of the areas and one of the case studies that we were covering is the small-scale farming in Transylvania and Romania, where we often still have a high level of biodiversity, but it's the economic sustainability aspects that are of particular importance here, and to ensure that the systems are being maintained. On the other hand, we also wanted to cover arable farming systems that are really market-oriented and conventional in nature. The example here is in Lower Saxony in Germany. And then the context is more, it's not so much on enhancing or progressing with agroecological transitions, but it's more on how to actually get started, how to initiate agroecological transitions in such systems. Another example is the kind of case study that we had in Sweden, where it was more about more crops for human consumption. So how to diversify livestock farms, livestock farming systems to produce more crops directly for human consumption, to look at the different value chain aspects that are so important in terms of the value added creation, and to make sure that through the engagement of different actors here, for example, Oatly, but also different shops and retailers, restaurants, that there is a viable business model. Another example is agroecological farming systems in northern Spain, where there are already corporations and producer organizations of agroecological and organic farms. And particular importance here is then to look into producer-consumer linkages through direct marketing, short supply chains, and really to engage and co-construct different solutions. And my final example that I want to highlight here is the territorial level, the governance of agroecological transitions. And the example here is the biostrict approach. And here we had an example of promoting agroecological transitions in vineyards and viticulture with the bio district in the Chianti area in Italy. So those are a few examples altogether in terms of the diversity that we wanted to cover. Of course, there are some limitations of what you can do within a project. But what was clear then, that really for those specific local contexts, it's really important to have a systems-based approach, to go into in-depth in those case studies, to understand the different barriers and drivers, and to bring together the different actors in the multi-actor engagement. And as I said, to basically make sure that farmers, of course, are important because they're a central actor implementing the practices, but it needs the engagement of all those different type of actors to make transitions sustainable and long-term. And then to have different tools and methods for co-learning and assessment, decision support tools for farm level assessments, and other engagement methods. Just very briefly, a kind of overview of the main elements of the project. I don't want to go here in detail. One of the key elements, as I said before, are really the multi-actor platforms that we have set up in the different case studies in the partner countries, but also at the European level, to have also that multi-level interaction and engagement of different type of actors to really co-design solutions for agroecological farming systems. Conceptually and scientifically, we used a socio-ecological systems framework as a basis for the analysis of the different farming systems. And we did empirical data collection in those participatory case studies as a basis then really to co-construct further knowledge and the strategies and incentives to really promote agroecological transitions. So it's about understanding the barriers and drivers of transitions and also to assess the performance and trade-offs. There were also biophysical and socioeconomic modeling that we used for the territorial level assessments to really look at the upscaling of transitions, what would the effects be at territorial level, and then to bring everything together in an agroecological knowledge hub where all the condensed results and information are translated into easily readable material. So in terms of main outputs and impacts from the project, the first key output is really the kind of improved understanding of what are the key sustainability issues across the main farming systems. And in particular, also what are the processes behind it that have led to those sustainability issues? Why could these not be approved, or why could agroecological practices not be implemented? And what does it take and need to make progress here? Then the performance and trade-off assessment of agroecological practices at farm level. So with different decision support tools covering economic, environmental, and social aspects, we did analysis on real farms in the different case studies and created a database here for the different indicators and trade-offs. And as I said, the territorial level impacts that we analyzed and quantified. Also in the context of future scenarios on how the socioeconomic and the political environment is going to develop in Europe and how that impacts on those prospects of large-scale agroecological transitions. A key output then really is the co-constructed strategies of agroecological transitions. So with the local actors, we defined concrete action on how to improve cooperation, what are the governance changes in the local systems, and how in particular the local actors that are part of the system can contribute to addressing those barriers. So what are their different roles in that process? And then also to look at the supporting role of policy and market incentives and to particular innovative instruments when it comes to capacity building, fostering knowledge exchange, but also in terms of market incentives through producer-consumer associations, for example, to create the added value. And the two last points here are again about the multi-actor platforms, the group learning processes on how to jointly learn and co-design innovations in those different contexts, and also how to foster an active engagement and really to enable local actors to be involved, and then the knowledge hub, as I explained earlier on. And just some key lessons maybe to close from the project, because the project has come now basically to an end. We are now in the reporting phase of the project. And when we look at all the different agroecological transitions that we analyzed across the different case studies in the partner countries, a few particular aspects are really important across nearly all of the case studies. And one of those aspects is about knowledge and knowledge creation. So to improve farmer knowledge on the benefits of agroecological practices, but also on the economic opportunities, really, that's a key aspect for success in agroecological transitions, where we often have seen barriers across the different case studies. Another point, and maybe that also links a little bit to previous presentations, is really the important role of education. The need also for focusing on young generations, because we are looking forward. We want to improve sustainability through agroecological transitions, and it's about the young generation to engage them, and also the role of school programs and the cooperation with schools to raise awareness at an early age. And it also links to the role, in addition to the awareness raising and the knowledge creation about children and the young generation, the aspect of public procurement and creating added value for farmers through public procurement of products that are basically produced on agroecological farms. And that links to the horizontal and vertical collaboration in the value chain, which is really important to address the bottlenecks there for agroecological transitions. When it comes to policy support, what we think one of the key aspects really is the focus on empowering local actors and the capacity building of local actors that policy needs to foster, so that local actors in themselves can create networks and can cooperate at the territorial level. And I think that links to the candidate partnership on agroecology that the European Commission also is basically preparing this year with the living labs and research infrastructures that plays a critical role there. And the final point really is transformational change in terms of increasing sustainability through agroecological transitions really requires a food system perspective. So the farm to fork terminology that we have in the European strategy is quite an important one to really make transformational change and to design strategic pathways there. And then to close, maybe just a few thoughts then on how that potentially links to Horizon Europe and the clusters and destinations. And it's those aspects on governance and sustainability of agroecological transitions and how that interplays with all the different sustainability aspects. And in particular, climate change and biodiversity becomes quite important. And there are several calls and several themes in Horizon Europe that build on that. And interestingly, the observation is that the term agroecological is increasingly used in the different drafts of the work program. It also links to the calls in relation to circular economies and externalities of agri-food productions, and the particular linkage between Horizon Europe and the different EU-level partnerships, be it the biodiversity one or the agroecology one that's currently prepared and suggested, and the importance of the multi-actor platforms and engaging the different actors through the different projects in whatever form and shape. Living labs are one option here also to foster open innovation. But I guess a common key aspect from our perspective would be really to involve the young generation, young farmers, but also in other types of actors and communities. And I think with that, I close. Thanks a lot for the opportunity again to present. Thanks.
Thank you, Gerald. Thank you very much for sharing. I think it's quite interesting, and of course, as you said, you are already finalizing the reporting and closing, so we can have a broader perspective on what is happening and what lessons you can learn, you can take from what you have been developing. So, thank you so much for bringing also your experience today.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so we will move on to Claudia De Luca. I can see you there. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Claudia De Luca is a research fellow of the Department of Architecture, University of Bologna. She is an environmental scientist now focusing on sustainable urban and spatial planning and rural regeneration processes. She is now actively involved in several EU-funded projects, and she's part of the coordination team of Ruritage project. So thank you so much for being here today with us. I can already see your presentation, so go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Flavia. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thanks to the ones that came before me for the very interesting presentation. I learned a lot. I have to say that maybe our project is kind of different. I mean, most of them are really dealing with agriculture and nature and let's say farmer also, that kind of stakeholders. Our approach is kind of different. I mean, we are working in a planning department. And this project, that is an Horizon 2020 project that started in June 2018, so almost 3 years already. It's a 4-year project, so we will have another year in front of us. And the idea was to work on rural areas that are mostly defined by the food sector, by the agricultural sector. But our idea was to work in rural areas and in rural regeneration through a kind of a different approach that is based on heritage. Heritage in a very broad sense, you will see, with, of course, touching upon food producer and farmers, but including also very other sectors. So I think it's going to be a bit diverse, I would say, the approach. I hope you will enjoy it. Why we decided to work on rural areas and why we focus on this point when we were replying to the topic of the European Commission. I mean, we know that quite some share of people actually in the European Union do live in rural areas, even though these areas suffer from depopulation and demographic issue that we also heard before about. But still, I mean, a big part of the gross added value, it is created in intermediate and so-called predominantly rural areas. There's a big issue in the definition of rural, intermediate, peri-urban, so I will not enter into that. What we do believe is that what we consider rural areas is basically an area that is suffering common challenge that is, as we said before, depopulation, people living, and most of all infrastructure issue in terms of services and transport. These were, let's say, the common challenge that we found in all the territories. But at the same time, they do embody, let's say, outstanding example of cultural and natural heritage. So both in terms of natural heritage, protected areas, park, and whatever, but also in terms of cultural heritage. In this sense, we do refer to tangible heritage, to monuments, museum, or so on, but we mostly refer, let's say, to all that intangible part of rural areas that, as we said, they're kind of cradle of our own civilization, where people still speak old dialects, they are still like working with handcraft. There's a lot of social practices that we can learn about also in agriculture, if we think about it, for example. Still, they do suffer from many challenges. And also the same cultural heritage and natural heritage is threat, let's say, at the moment. What does rural regeneration means to us? I mean, as I was saying before, first of all, it means local resources and cultural and natural heritage. So there is exactly where we started to start this regeneration process in rural areas. Then it means social inclusion. So we are working a lot on inclusion of diverse stakeholders, but also diverse communities within the rural regeneration. And then, I mean, everything that we spoke already about, quality of life, landscape, sustainable development, but also mental well-being, environmental balance, and sustainable tourism. Of course, when you speak about regeneration in rural areas, you also mention sustainable tourism, even though this is not a focus of what we are doing. It's a huge consortium, so we are 38 partners. The University of Bologna, specifically Professor Simona Tondelli, that is the leader of our lab, is the project coordinator, and we are leading a 38 partners consortium with 13 so-called role models. So these are the good practices that we identified in Europe and beyond as example of regeneration process that took place through cultural and natural heritage. Then we identified 6 replicators that are the case studies that are developing now, actually they are implementing now their own strategies to regenerate their territories. And then there are so-called knowledge facilitator partners that are basically research center, academics, SMEs, so various type of partner that is supporting role models and replicators in their strategies. Our paradigm of rural regeneration is summarized in this picture and this image that I hope is pretty much self-explanatory. So when we thought about what it is, rural regeneration, and what we want to do and what is heritage for us, we did develop these 6, we call them SIAs, so systemic innovation areas, but they are basically, let's say, drivers for development. So we do believe that rural areas can work on these 6 diverse themes, but still, as you see in here, very much interrelated. And those are pilgrimage, rural food production, migration, art and festival, resilience, and landscape. What does it mean? I mean, I think that giving you some example is the easiest way to explain them. So, for example, pilgrimage, if we think about the case of Camino de Santiago, that is one of our role model and partner, what they managed to do with revitalizing the Camino during the years, I mean, this is something very old, it is to maintain alive some of the small villages that are through the Camino and they are basically living through that. And they did it in a very sustainable way. Both at a social level, at economic level, and an environmental level. And so we started to learn from them how this kind of pilgrimage and also in some cases hiking can be a driver of regeneration for rural areas. Rural food production, I mean, this of course means local producer, farmers, younger farmers, and everything that was discussed a bit already. Then we thought about migration as a potential driver because, as you know, many areas, as I said, suffer about depopulation. So something that is mostly seen as a challenge, we did see in some cases that it was actually huge opportunities for the community to keep some services alive, to use heritage to make a faster and a simpler integration. There is a case in Italy represented by PIAM, that is an Ollus working in Piemonte region. And they are working together with the refugees on the actually agricultural sector. So they took some old grains and they are now working these grains together with the people that arrived in the area. Art and festival, so in this case, heritage is intended as culture, and we do believe that culture should be a driver of regeneration of this area. If we don't offer people a good quality of life, they will not stay, mostly young people. So if we don't work, for example, of cultural events, art and festival, and making this space, let's say, vibrant and alive, we will not manage to make people stay there. Resilience, that again is intended in a bit of broad way. In this sense, is like how heritage can support you and how local knowledge can support you in actually overcoming natural disasters. So we work there with cases in Iceland, with cases in Crete that is about earthquake and how can community be more resilient to this part. Another case study is in Italy, and what they're working on is really on building a community resilience for this part. Of course, in the middle of the COVID crisis, we did interpret resilience also on that side. And the last one is landscape. And in this sense, it's like the integrated management of the whole landscape. And we do consider landscape as an interaction, let's say, of all the tangible and intangible resources of the territories. And also here we have wonderful case studies in Ireland, the Wild Atlantic Way, in Norway, and the last one is in between Spain and Portugal, actually, is in the Douro part. And the replicator is located in Turkey. So this is just to show you very, very fastly, like what is the overall idea behind our regeneration strategy. So what we did, we started to study these drivers, starting from these role models, so good practices. And we understood that, of course, as it was already mentioned, collaboration among stakeholders and training were crucial in all the different role models to actually transform the initial capitals that they have. And then that basically this strategy led to a better dissemination and safeguarding of the same heritage. And we divided SIA in two types, let's say the challenge-driven and the development-driven. So of course, migration and resilience are the so-called challenge-driven. So you start there from a challenge that you have and you try to develop upon that. And the other ones, so pilgrimage, food, landscape, and art and festival are the so-called development-driven. Here it's a very short summary that I leave you more like for the presentation. It's true that, what we notice is that the success of role models in many cases was a result of a combination of planned and very, seriously intentional process and totally unexpected circumstances. So it was very hard somehow to find pattern there. But yeah, what I said, like this division, the development driven, of course, they started from a very high cultural and natural capitals. If we think about the Camino de Santiago, for example, that I think is a very easy example. And then through these, they do develop the other capitals, so the built, the human, and the social one. In the challenge driven, it's actually a bit different, no? So basically, they had to understand the resources of the territory to undergo, let's say, action of valorization, improvement, and development. And again, I mean, key stakeholders involved, technical coordination, and of course, political engagement was crucial. After learning, from these role models, we then went back to the replicators. There are our case studies where we wanted to really settle and transform the place. And what we did to basically give this replicator the knowledge was to set up a kind of, let's say, complicated knowledge transfer and capacity building. So we basically set what we called rural heritage hubs. So these are physical places that are placed in each of the case studies, so both role model and replicators. And this physical place aim at involving the overall community. So the knowledge is gathered in this physical place in the role models. The role model coordinator, that is the project partner, is responsible to share the local knowledge with the other partners. And the other partners are there responsible to share back this knowledge in their own local hub. So there is this, let's say, project level, and local level. And the idea is really to try to share and to mix this diverse knowledge. We met several times. We were lucky enough to start the project where we could still meet. The kickoff was in June 2018, and then we had several training workshop, development workshop, where people were actually working on this knowledge exchange. We were lucky enough to travel to Spain, to Greece, to Italy, and to manage to meet several times. Also, our case studies had the opportunity to meet bilaterally among themselves. So they did these mentoring and learning visits. So, for example, people that wanted to know more about pilgrimage, they went to Santiago, but then people from Santiago go back to Austria, that is the replicator in this area, to check what they were doing. Same applied, for example, with Crete and Appignano, that is the replicator in Italy about resilience. So in this case, it was really 3-4 days visits where they were encountering local stakeholders and they were really understanding how the situation was in the territory. Then in each replicator, they had to develop their strategies. So they learn from the role models, but at a certain point, they have to understand what they wanted to do at their local level. And we wanted them to involve the local community and stakeholders to understand what were their priorities. So what you see here is the images of the different hubs. In the replicators, you see, pretty participated hubs. They went through actually 9 months co-development phase where they had several workshops, they discussed the priorities with the stakeholders, they presented them what they learned in the project, and they came out with 6 plans. So each replicator, and you can find this in the website, now has his own heritage-led regeneration strategy with detailed action of what they're gonna do to regenerate their area through heritage. I can't, of course, go into detail of that, but this is all in the website. And again, we were lucky enough to finish this process in February 2020. So that means that they ended this, and then of course the implementation started a bit slower than expected, but still they're managing to adapt, and I will say to implement most of the things that they were thought about doing. And what are we doing now? We are already getting on board additional replicators. So we had a call for new rural communities around the world to join us. And 10 of them are now developing their own heritage-led strategies, taking inspiration from role models and replicators. We are working on education and, let's say, capacity building and skill building. So we do have a professional master. The call is now open and we start in January 2022. So I invite you to have a look at our website. And we will have the first edition of the summer school, most probably online, in July 2021. Again, the application will open soon on our website. And we are also aiming at working at governance and regulatory frameworks. So we are working at policy level. There will be a white paper made by UNESCO, that is one of our project partners, on the role of cultural and natural heritage as a driver for sustainable development in EU and beyond. We did develop a so-called vision paper. So this is something that we did when we were bored and locked down in our home. We decided to launch a call for practices. So good practices in COVID crisis. So what were rural areas around the world doing? And we published this vision paper and a related also actually scientific paper. And this is what I want also to mention to you now, because I see also before that there are some regional representatives here. We do have now open a call for regions. I will then copy paste the link in the chat, because we are developing policy recommendation to integrate cultural and natural heritage into the regional smart specialization strategy. It's very hard always to say that. So yeah, regional authorities are now developing their new strategies for the new programming period that is, just started. So we are planning to have an online event in October with regional authorities that are interested into this topic. So how to include cultural and natural heritage as an innovative tool, to also innovate their own region. And there will be this online event where regional authorities will be invited, and we will be glad to invite the participant of this board to the final conference that will hopefully take place next year, April or May, in Paris at the UNESCO premises. And that will be at project expenses, again, if this will be feasible. That's it from my side. I'm happy to share in the chat the link to this call, and yeah, happy to receive any question or whatever else. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Please do. I think well, thank you for your enthusiasm. It was very nice to hear from you and to follow up on what you have been doing. Indeed, you were, well, finishing on February 2020 was right on time. So it was good that you had the chance to do all those co-creation and all those moments in time of, well, not being caught up in all of this situation, which of course we had to adjust very quickly. And well, I'm amazed with all of the logos and diagrams. Everything is so appealing to look into it. So congratulations, not only on the work, but on the way you are showing what you are doing, which sometimes it's one of the hard things to really to explain, because as I could understand, there is so much that you did that it can be hard just to show it. So thank you so much on this and for sharing it with us. So I would like to ask all the speakers to turn on their cameras, please. And I would like just to, I think we already have some questions and comments here on the chat. So I can start maybe with the one that Professor Stefano left here on the chat, mentioning that a major challenge for sustainable agriculture is the competition over land with urban industrial infrastructure usage. So has anybody successfully addressed this challenge? And yes, this is a problem in Italy and Emilia-Romagna. Thank you, Stefano. Anyone would like to comment on this from our panel? Daniela.
Would I pop in? Yes. Well, we haven't managed to address this challenge successfully, but I would just like also to share the same view, the same difficulty that we are facing here in the city of Sofia. We are trying to influence our policymakers to dedicate certain areas to urban farming in order to avoid this, complete over construction of the city and so on, and to have some regulation of what potential areas could be used for urban farming, what could be used for new buildings and infrastructure. An interesting initiative that was made here again on a voluntary basis, bottom up, was to do a mapping of all the areas that are suitable for urban farming. And we delivered that to the municipality. And currently we're trying to initiate a dialogue with the municipality and with the various various bodies that are in charge of this kind of regulation. But it's a very long shot with a lot of efforts, a lot of resources needed. We don't know when potentially this could happen, but we hope that one day it will be well regulated in our city. But it's a big challenge. I believe it's not only in our regions, in Emilia-Romagna, in Sofia, I believe it's in many cities across Europe that haven't managed to introduce this urban farming into their policies and haven't actually any kind of dedicated support to such actions. So we're in the same problem. Yeah.
Yes, indeed, we are addressing it. Also, what Professor Yorgos Stefanidis has mentioned on the on joining efforts. So a bit what we are doing with Interreg Europe, really with stakeholders, with creating the ecosystems that allow us to step by step being able to address it. But it's something that we don't have yet the great solution. We are building up the solutions also along. It's a learning process, and the policy instruments are a very important tool here. And yes, we will get back to that for sure because we don't have it. I think there is not a definite answer for now. Okay, maybe I can just I made some questions that perhaps we can address if you still have a few minutes. I know that we are a little bit of time, but just to close, to wrap it up, about the first intervention of Professor Stefano, I was wondering if of course probably it's not very quick, but to understand how what you mentioned about precision agriculture and this solution. How would someone know? What would be your suggestions to start with this solution? What do you feel that people, when looking for solutions, they consider this as a good one? How to start?
Okay, I think that we have a good practice in place in Emilia-Romagna, which could be reasonably extended to other areas in Europe and elsewhere. And to my understanding, it is not the same everywhere. And basically, we have this public irrigation advisory service, which is free. There are also companies providing maybe improved advisory service, but any farmer can register and just state her crop, which is going to be cultivated in that parcel. And there is a network of meteorological stations every 5 kilometers, plus additional ones. And what we are doing positive, we are building upon this. But this is a fundamental milestone because it allows precision irrigation to be applied everywhere in the region. This is very important. I understand it's not a common practice everywhere in Europe. And so everything that we have tried to do in the project has been to align additional service on top of this. So we can have a broad coverage of the region with satellite data. Let's feed this data into the advisory service so that it is improved. Sometimes the farmers, they claim that the advice is not accurate enough. They receive daily or daily advice about when to irrigate and how much water to deliver and so on. We have done a lot of study. My agricultural partner, not myself, they are doing the actual research and how to use in the best ways as possible, how to calibrate satellite data with actual physiological data on the crops. And so we are now able to provide an improved advice. I mean, the existing service can provide an improved advice, also variable rate. at a 10-meter scale, like satellite data are available. So I think that this is a good practice that can be, it's not doing really big science. There are also some colleagues which are working like in novel sensor, which are measuring the sap into the stem of the plants. They are doing some kind of incredible things. But this is something that's going to produce its effects in the longer future. But rather using what you already have, like communication infrastructure, satellite from the EU, is something that can be included into regional policies, and it can play a much larger effect in terms of how much water is being used by farmers, how much water must be fed into the canals, rather than the XLS project, in my humble opinion.
Thank you so much. Also for Daniela, I was wondering, you were talking about citizen project, and what do you consider, of course, we have the targets established and so on, what do you consider would be, in the end, the best outcome that we can hope for in the project?
Well, I would say it's going to be twofold, at least in my understanding. On the one hand, any positive impact on the policies that we are addressing would be already a success, because it's very difficult to change the mindset of policymakers and to influence policymaking bottom up, as we are doing it, and meeting also the top-down understanding. And on the other hand, the best impact, in my view, would be the larger community in our regions, together with the stakeholders, that gets this understanding and willingness to get involved in urban farming initiatives, because that's kind of if we manage to change the mindset of the communities that we live in. On the one hand, we have the policymakers, but on the other hand, we have the various stakeholders and the citizens and the organizations and the schools and various institutions. That would be really a very good impact.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of, it might sound like wishful thinking, but let's see. We are in the midway of the project, so we still have a lot of things to do.
Exactly. Thank you, Daniela. Also for Professor Stefanides, I would like, you were mentioning in your presentation the circularity self-assessment tool. Could you just explain a bit how it works, or how, for example, we can access to it? What is the fundamental behind it? Thank you.
Yes, of course. As I mentioned, it has been designed to be very easily used. And this is the reason that it has already been used by 114 SMEs. It has been designed so that it is transferable, so that if there are some specific interests in an area, we can easily change and include those interests. So, okay, the user does not see what is behind this tool. The user sees some simple questions that ask the user to explain if he knows about circularity, and if he does, then okay, then the questions go deeper. What has he done in the past, or is he willing to do something in the future? And then along the questions, it appears that there may be some gaps. Or maybe not. Okay, usually there are, not everybody is perfect. So, so depending on the gaps, the tool automatically puts them together, and in the end, gives an answer to an assessment to the user, indicating that, okay, you're very good in practice, you have indicated this and that, but there are some elements that you are missing, and you can find these elements by opening such a workshop that we have already automated, and you can look at that workshop and fill the gap. So very easily the user gets an answer, gets a reward indicating how good his system is, and very easily gets a way to fill in the gaps by going into something that is offered by the project to cover these gaps.
Perfect. Thank you, Professor. I think we can also consult the website, and for sure we'll have all the information.
Yes, I would appreciate your comments also.
Yeah.
If there are any problems, let us know.
Okay,
Keep
thank you so
improving on
much.
it.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, for Maria, I just have a quick question, and then also Professor Stefano has a question to do. I was just wondering, because you said that 20 to 30% would be green areas, and I was wondering, as we were talking about the farming and so on, if you are considering, for example, urban farms in the schools.
Yes, yeah, that's actually a comment that I would like to make as well. After that, we have this whole discussion about urban farming as well. We do have provision in some schools to have planting beds, but not actually the ground, because you need to keep in mind that it's limited space for too many uses, and also the soil pollution that we might have sometimes within cities. So we have provision in some cases that we have specific areas with planting beds and specific curriculum that comes together with it. So because the idea is to integrate the uses that and the activities that they have in the schoolyard actually to their curriculum within the frame of the entire environmental education that children receive. I would actually encourage you to go on the website and have a look and taking our steps forward.
Perfect. Thank you, Maria. Professor Stefano, you had a question also?
Yeah, thank you. I was interested in Maria's presentation because actually I'm from Reggio Emilia. Some of you might be familiar with the Reggio approach, and so I think it was quite in sympathy with Maria's presentation. However, I have a concern. It's the following. I wonder whether the city of Paris has a strong long-term commitment toward this greening of schools approach, because what we see in Italy, in Emilia-Romagna, but also I believe everywhere in Italy, is that often cities they commit into investing into green areas, but then they do not commit for maintenance, and so we see that the city parks and maybe they are not properly managed, or only few of them are managed, and then we will have a lot of schoolyards which are not well kept, which is very important especially for infant schools. Sometimes we have vandalized the equipment and so on. So there should be a strong commitment into managing the rural areas, and I mean also inside the city, the green areas. And so this is somehow convergent with my previous comment about the fight over land, actually. Okay, thank you, Maria, for your reply.
Yes, this is a great question, because this has been one of the major challenges that we have when trying to redesign and transform the schoolyards, because there is opposition from city departments as well and the school directors. But this is exactly the point where we're trying to engage the whole local community. So once we're redesigning together with the community, we're co-deciding that if we plant those trees that the leaves might fall, like all of us have responsibility. So we are co-creating a space for all of us. So we're trying to create, and this is exactly the stage that we're working on right now, how we can share responsibilities and activities. So in some cases, what we're piloting in schools is a few activities that are also requiring the participation of children into how we keep our schoolyard alive, like watering the plants, and also collecting leaves, like in small different activities, learning how to keep what we love alive, and at the same time trying to contribute to maintenance. Of course, there's commitment from the city department as well, that there is going to be to a certain level of maintenance, but there was a lot of struggle trying to define exactly the percentage and the type of vegetation we would add in order to also tackle this issue of maintenance. It is a great issue, and I hope that we have made a step towards becoming better on this. Let's see how it will go in the next years.
Perfect. Thank you, Maria. for clarifying this. And also I have a question for Gerard on the, you were mentioning in your presentation on, of course, the importance of education, young generations. You were mentioning also the Living Lab. So are you considering like to prepare some sequence or follow-up on the UNISECO project now on Horizon Europe, or?
Yeah, the short answer is yes, we do. The more detailed answer is that there are different strands how we are active there. First of all, we are also involved in the preparation of the partnerships for agroecology of the Living Lab and research infrastructures. So that's one of the routes where we can also feed results and insights and lessons from UNISECO into the process. And yes, one of the ambitions is to continue basically the process and follow-up projects as well. And the particular important point here, I think, also in our mind is in a way, the kind of investment and the trust building that has taken place in all the multi-actor platforms over the course of the project, and also partly in previous projects, that there's a mechanism that it would be worthwhile maintaining, of course, beyond the duration of a single project, because otherwise we're always starting again from scratch, which would be a pity. So yes, we are looking for follow-up projects. We are preparing, but we are also using the multi-actor platforms and other ongoing projects to be sure that we can keep the social capital alive, basically. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. It's good to know. So you have a good panel also to to build on everyone's experience. So good to know. I would like just a final question for Claudia, which is you showed us so much, and basically there was this point on the part of the capacity building and knowledge transfer, and how. Yeah, I know this must be it can be a difficult question, but how did you make it work, basically, because it's such a difficult process and it sounded so complex, but in the end you had great results. So, and it also, it's connected to what we have been talking about, stakeholder engagement and how to bring the people into the processes, and you successfully implemented all this co-creation part of the process. So, just maybe some tips, or what do you think? Well, what you said about sometimes you had to adapt to unexpected circumstances along with the planned ones. So I don't know if you can also elaborate a bit on this.
Thank you very much. It's a matter of time. I mean, I don't think there are a lot of tips on this topic. Participation do need a lot of time at local level. I mean, our case studies took 6 months in the fastest case to do this co-development phase. And this is just the co-development phase. Now they are co-implementing those. And this is very similar to what Maria was mentioning before. So what we did in the co-development phase was to arrive at the end at signature of partnership. So each of the partner actually signed public, private, public. I mean, there are now a lot of these kind of partnerships. That means that stakeholders, and in some cases the local communities, took over responsibilities over the implementation of the plan. That means that some of the action of the plan are actually implemented by the same stakeholder that participated in the co-development phase. To do that, it was really long. I mean, first of all, because we use a language in European project that it's hard, and it's really hard to understand for people that are not used to it. Second of all, because in some cases, I mean, I will say that in this case, I believe that the role of the coordinator was pretty crucial, because we had to engage very much in all the different phases to be always available for, let's say, confrontation, and to make them better understand what it was about, to translate the knowledge generated at a scientific level to something that was much more understandable for the partners, because I think that one of the main strengths that we have is that most of the partners, the case studies, are either local authorities, but we are not speaking here about Paris, but about municipality of 1,000 people. So it's, I mean, we've been very lucky to find somebody that was speaking English in some of those places. And in some cases, we are working with NGO, local association, I mean, people that are really out from the European bubble somehow. So this was hard. It was really hard to translate them the topic, but it was really, really rewarding, because when they got that there was something that they could really do and make an impact on the territory, they had a switch that they didn't see in big cities that are much used, no? That is a kind of a business as usual work. This, for them, was really the first time they engaged so much. They created then bilateral relation like among the replicators and the role models. So they are communicating now without any more our mediation and facilitation, let's say. But it's really a matter of time and effort. I think it's it's much, yeah. In terms of effort, it was much more than what we thought. And I think it's also a term of, you really have to be passionate about these things. It's not something you just do you do the task and you check it, because it's not working in that way when you work with people. So that's, I don't think it's a tip, but it's much more.
Experience, it's always valuable, yes. But thank you, Claudia. Indeed, it is really amazing. But of course, yes, as you said, time is precious, and in these cases is key for building up trust, to getting to the right people, to make it work. But for sure, it was an impressive. I have to say that all of the presentations were impressive, because it was a very good panel and very good experience that we were able to gather here, and hopefully that we can keep in touch for future opportunities, and to co-create also something together. And I don't know, Danielle, if you would like to say something just to wrap it up now that we reached the end. I'm sorry with the short delay, but I think it was good to have this rich discussion in the end, and to be able to listen to all of you.
Just connect the phones, sorry. So can you hear me normally?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to say thanks again for the invitation to be on the opening of this session. All that has been spoken here, it's been very interesting. It has been a real privilege to hear your testimonies, and well, I wish you all a good rest of summit. It was a pleasure to meet you, all of you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Stay in touch, and stay tuned to all that is still to happen throughout the week on the summit. So thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.